Welcome! You've landed on PAXX TV, the web series all about aviation and the passenger experience. I'm Olivia Gunn, and in this episode we learn how United Airlines has become a case study in how not to handle a crisis. We also learn how cabin lighting can affect passenger perception, and we receive a report from Tasmania Airlines from our correspondent down under. But first, a word from our sponsor, GoGo.
How do we deliver the best performing IFC technology to aircraft? We focus on the plane first. Our aircraft expertise lets us install fast and minimize touches, keeping planes in service where they belong. And now our high bandwidth, future-ready global solution, 2KU, is in flight. New and better services for passengers, greater operational efficiency for our partners. The 2KU era has begun.
United's response to the assault of a passenger who was dragged from his seat after being bumped by the airline has now become a cautionary tale for communications experts. When video first emerged of the horrifying incident showing the man bloodied and scared after being manhandled by an aviation security officer, United's initial public statement was seen as tone-deaf and lacking in empathy. Company CEO Oscar Munoz apologized for having to reaccommodate customers rather than for how the man was treated, and the airline didn't take ownership of the situation. But the backlash on social media was swift and fierce, and United's share price dropped. Munoz later issued a proper apology, apologizing for the incident and taking full responsibility, vowing that United would do better in the future. Many agree that this should have been done when the incident first happened, not some 30 hours later. Commenting on the fiasco, Robert Hay, brand strategist, noted United Airlines is worth $7.16 billion, yet there seems to be little understanding of how to manage that value. He says United needs to learn lessons fast. And PR Week reported in time this episode and subsequent response will be quoted in textbooks as an example of how not to handle a crisis. Meanwhile, modern travelers who are mobile, social, and very vocal go forward demanding a better United. Coming up, RGN contributing editor John Walton goes from business class to only class in Par Avion, Tasmania Airlines.
Designing passenger experience is one thing when you have an A380 or even a 737 to work with. But what about if you're a small independent operator, like Australia's Par Avion, Airlines of Tasmania? Managing Director Shannon Wells explains.
So tourism is a big part of our business, particularly over summer. So we have 5 or 6 aeroplanes dedicated to the tourism flights, and our main trip we do is down to a place called Bathurst Harbour in the Southwest National Park of Tasmania, which is part of the Tasmanian Wilderness World Heritage Area. It's about an hour's flying out of Hobart, and it's one of only 2 places in the world that have 7 criteria out of 10 to be listed for World Heritage. So it's very special, and it's right in our backyard. So we take about 3,000 to 4,000 people down there a year, and they do half-day tours, full-day tours, and we also have an overnight camp down there, and you can do a 3-day, 2-night experience down the southwest.
Par Avion uses 10-seater Britten-Norman Islanders for many of its tourist flights.
This is the rear door of the Islander. So the Islander has 3 doors because there's no, as you can see, no aisle, but 5 rows of seats. This one's flying down bushwalkers, so the middle row, which has no windows, is going to be decked out with bags. We've got 2 rows of the back, so we're going to take 4 passengers in the back and 3 in the front row, next to the, 1 next to the pilot and then 2 in the second row. So all up weight, we can take about 3,000 kilos as the maximum takeoff weight, or just slightly below that. So we've got about a usable load of about 1,000 kilos, which isn't too bad for getting out of 400 metres of runway. There are some mods that we've done to the aircraft to allow us to put more windows into the plane, which these back windows we've done as a mod. You can even get a mod for the middle row, but you don't really see much out of there, and it actually reduces some of the weight.
So how do you design passenger experience without cabin crew or even an aisle?
Alright, first thing with our passenger experience is that we are operating a tourist flight, so we only fly down in generally good weather. If it's too windy, so it's going to be very turbulent, or it's too cloudy so they won't see a lot out the window, we generally won't fly tourists in there. We might be able to legally fly in there, but we won't take tourists in there. Our flights are generally 45 minutes to an hour, so we don't really have food on the flight, but if a flight's over, we'll have a bottle of water or some Tasmanian apples or things like that, because most of our food offerings on the ground in our tour. So we're doing a 4-hour tour and an 8-hour tour, of which 2 hours is flying. So there's plenty of opportunity to have Tasmanian salmon, pate, cheeses, a couple of glasses of wine while at Melaleuca. because most of the time the flight they're looking out the window, so they're not really bored and having their head down eating food anyway. And the flight also all come with headsets, so the pilot can give commentary and some route maps as well, just showing where they are. So looking at expanding that over the next 12 months, we're going to tossing up probably looking at putting in potentially like an iPod feed, which will be able to play different languages. The Chinese market is slowly growing for us, not out of this world like everyone thinks it might be, but it is definitely growing. The other thing we might look at is also the maps in different languages as well, because our traditional markets are really New Zealand, North America, the UK, Western Europe, but East Asia is starting to grow a little bit.
As global passenger mixes change and new markets evolve, smart airlines are reviewing how their passenger experience needs to change too.
And finally, a UK-based firm is helping airlines transform their older jets by adding LED lighting solutions. RGN editor Mary Kirby caught up with STG Aerospace CEO Nigel Duncan to discuss how their plug-and-play offering is easily lighting up cabins and delighting passengers as a result.
Thanks, Olivia. There are very few things that you can actually control on an aircraft as far as the passenger's perception is concerned. But one thing that can have a substantial upside is to give the passenger a better experience by using light more effectively.
It's a rendering, but this is the cabin flight attendant panel that typically has a number of switches. So it's got off, dim, and medium and bright. And what we've done is we've gone off, dim, and light mode and bright. So when you go off, then you go to the first setting, which is dim. Then the second setting, instead of it going to medium, we actually use that setting to go to semi-mood.
Lovely, lovely.
Et voila, and I'll do that again for you. And then you go on to the bright setting. So these are standard operating procedures in the aircraft. Nothing's changed. So you get the benefits of the standard settings, and you're using essentially a redundant setting on the panel that's medium to make it useful for the airplane.
Wow, and can the airline decide what color it wants to go for that light setting, or are they mostly going with the blue?
They can decide in certain circumstances, but our experience is that an airline is not a lighting expert. And we've actually had some very interesting conversations at the show about different kinds of light. And I asked these airlines, I said, are you buying some new seats? Yes, we're spending a lot of money on new seats. Are you buying some new carpet? Yes, I'm buying new carpet. So where do you want your brand to come from? From the seats and the carpet, or the lights? Which is it? And they say, well, can we have both? And the reality is you have to be careful. If you use the wrong kind of light and then you bring in your brand new seat you've just spent millions of dollars on, you can spoil the whole experience. So you have to use the right kind of light. Therefore, color or multicolor isn't always the best thing to do.
Gotcha.
Color in the ceiling is certainly an advisable thing to do. And what we have tried to do is mimic the Boeing Sky Interior, incredibly popular.
Yeah.
And most of the Boeing customers use that in two modes, white and blue. So there's a reason for that. It feels good.
Yeah, and this really would, to the untrained eye, you would feel like you're in, a Sky Interior.
Well, actually, yes.
Minus the bins, but
our research shows that most passengers don't know if they're on a new or an old airplane if it's illuminated correctly.
That's all for this episode of PAX-X TV. Be sure to subscribe to our channel, follow Runway Girl on Twitter, and tune in next time for more news on the passenger experience.
It's a great day.